Richard Thomas Writing Channel, Episode 6. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm very good at it. Paula made some great technical suggestions for the the production of these videos. One of which I got a plug-in microphone. I know many of you are rolling your eyes and thinking, "Oh, brother." And also a light that hangs on my my laptop, so it gives me better light. Now she made another suggestion, which I balked at, even though I like the suggestion. She said it would be very easy to get a Chiron and write on the bottom of the screen, uh, Richard Thomas Writing Channel. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm very good at it. Episode 6. Um, but somehow I wondered what exactly would I be trying to say with that. I'm kind of resolved not to do any marketing or networking. I don't know what it adds. She's usually right about things, so I wouldn't be surprised if that showed up at a later date when I get some sort of understanding about it. But I do know that there's something I would have edited out when I was doing my blog, and that I gave all the pieces titles, and I usually found some public domain image, a movie poster or a photo of a famous person or something that I would put with the pieces. And, that drove a lot of audience at that time, because if I had a photo of a current movie that was out, there would be interest in that, and people would find it when they were looking to something about that movie. And I guess the idea is that would eventually draw them to my writing, and in some cases it did. But I don't know. I'm just not into it. I'm not into it, and I used to talked about this a little bit. I used to look for likes and views. I still do, but I do it in a different way. I mean, I would look at it like, oh, well, is this getting over? Or is it popular or whatever? I still had some sort of ambition of of this becoming a thing, that it would find an audience. I think it does find an audience, and I don't think I have to do all that. I think all we're talking. If somebody likes listening to me, they're going to listen to me. I don't think I have to jump through hoops to make them listen. I think what that does too is that it dilutes the content, because the content is best when I'm doing it to please myself. So that being said, and this is more based on a feeling than really doing a review, the last video, episode 5, I was really happy with that video. That's the way it felt. It felt like it was really good. And that kind of feeling, and then but you have to do more than a feeling, is to kind of try to assess which way you're going to go. The theater director, Peter Brook, I've used this quote often because it made a big impression on me. He said he was a great theater director, and he said he would always go into the initial rehearsal as if he had a plan, because he had to have the confidence of the actors and the crew and everything, that he knew what he was doing. So I'm kind of asking something of you at this point. Um, is it okay if I don't reassure you that I know what I'm doing? Because I don't. And actually, one of the things that I'm doing in this video is that I'm trying to make an assessment of what it is that I'm doing. Now, for example, um, we're looking at this writing that I did when I first got to Nashville last year, a year ago, 2023 August. Well, um, one thing that I was doing was working on myself. So this is one of the creative projects. Well, working on yourself. I mean, you're yourself. So what is it? I guess it's working on my conscious my conscious understanding of myself, like merging my consciousness with who I actually am. And in those notes that I'm in the middle of reading to you, that's definitely there. And that is in the video. So one of the things that I have been doing and do is I talk. I just present myself and I talk. So here it is. Here's my masterpiece. You know, you can there's something in me saying the words that's in addition to putting them on the page. There's some essence to them. That's the first thing. The second thing is that my friend in New York um, noticed this, but I thought it from the beginning of the blog. When I started writing 11 years ago, I mean, I wrote my whole life, but when I started writing with this kind of focus 11 years ago, where it was the thing that I did mostly with my days, there were a couple of writers in my mind. One was Emerson, and specifically his essays. And Emerson was a preacher, so his essays to me read like sermons. Um, the other, speaking of preaching, was a quote from Mark Twain that I actually thought this way back. This goes even into the 1980s. I included this in my stage show in New York. Mark Twain had a quote about the humorous writer. I don't know. I'm occasionally humorous. I don't set out to be a humorous writer, but if there's humor, I let it happen. It's like but Twain said the humorous writer aspires to awaken and direct your pity, your compassion. I'm not getting the quote exactly. You could look it up, I guess. Your scorn for untruth, pretension, and imposture. He takes upon himself to be the weekday preacher. And I found, particularly in the late Twain, the sermons. He just thunders against the Spanish American War. He thunders against the imperialism of the United States at the end of the 19th and into the beginning of the 20th century. And that was something that I really wanted to do. So there's that. There's talk. There's working on my being. I should say my consciousness of my being. We all are who we are, whether we know it or not. It's better if you kind of have an idea. Although, actually, but part of it is that the way that you get the idea is being who you are and then occasionally reflecting upon it. Yeah. And I think that's part of who I am. I mean, I've never been able to just not be reflective. Some people are, they're just who they are, and that's it. They're not, they're not conflicted about it. I'm more the Harold Bloom Hamlet that wonders, and through self overhearing, not only overhearing words but actions and feelings and everything. I observe them and try to figure out what they're telling me, and that gets into the other part of it, which is not only who I am but what I do. So there's the wisdom writing and the Twain Emerson type of writing. And then I tried after these last blog pieces, I wrote those two manuscripts, uh, which were going towards uh, some sort of long form narrative. I mean, I thought I was writing novels. They turned out to be memoirs, uh, and I I showed some talent and facility for it. So now, I think I think the part of it of who I am, that's a keeper. All right. I understand. And as I may have said earlier in the videos, uh, that understanding of who you are does not mean that you necessarily know what you're doing. I mean, I know who I am, and I follow who I am to do what I do. So that changes. But so do I want to do this wisdom writing, or do I want to write novels, or do I want to do both? And even earlier in these videos, I fought against the idea that one of those was better than the other, because I heard pretty much everywhere, and it was very persuasive, that the novel is the higher form than these essays. The novel goes deeper. It's extended through more time, and it has a broader perspective. It gets you thinking more universally, and that's all very persuasive. And on the other hand, uh, this God, it feels so pretentious to call it wisdom writing. I mean, if somebody else calls it wisdom writing, that's fine. But anyway, the personal essays that I've been doing, the stuff that in their initiation came from me thinking about Emerson and Twain 11 years ago. I've been doing those for a long time, and I'm comfortable doing them. Now, the question is, well, do both, write both. And I guess that's what a lot of writers do. But the other question I have is, okay, write both, but I'm 69 years old. And if I want to write a great novel, and that's what I'd want to attempt to do, is write a great novel. I just don't want to write a story that's an amusement and, makes some trite observations that everybody knows. I mean, I'd really like to write something. I don't even know. I suspect that I do, but I don't even know if I have that in me. And I had talked about this on earlier videos, but I'm talking about it a little bit in a different way too. And I think that's going to be the nature of it. I'm going to keep going over some stuff that's important. So I'm 69. So, you know, uh, I've shown some talent. I've learned a couple things through the experience, but I'm really at the beginning of this writing a novel thing, writing a really good novel. I mean, I'm at the beginning of it. There's certain things about it that I understand, but I have an awful lot to learn. And if I wanted to do that, uh, it may be that that has to be a lifetime commitment and that's it. Or it may be that they feed into each other. Or it may be that I want to do each other. Or it may be that I don't want to write at all. Or it may be that I just want to make notes and think about it and then have my person allow the consciousness of my person to change. That last one is kind of mandatory. I think I think that's necessary in order to enjoy my life, to be satisfied my life, the rest of my life. It's the rest of my life to be responsible in the rest of my life, to be, I'm uh, I'm kind of a sap. I mean, the idea is that to be the best person one can possibly be. What that really means, not just being polite or friendly or, having the respect of everybody or whatever, but to really be a good person, to be honest and loving and true and inner and other directed, self and other directed. Uh, these are these are the goals. They're not only goals, but they're also achievements. I mean, that's another thing too. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm good at it. I did that blog for 11 years. Those essays are good. I did those manuscripts. I think they're preliminaries of something, but those manuscripts are good. I've lived a life where I think I've lived a good life. So that's what I mean about being good at it. But what am I being called to do now? And one of the things I'm good at is that I'm good at being in the. It's not ambivalence. It's just clarity. It's creativity. It's waiting for it. I think a lot of times, of course, the mouth breathers are going to say, "Oh, it's navel gazing." He's just wasting. No, I mean, one thing I found in my life is that supposedly I was just sitting there wasting a lot of time daydreaming. And then when I look at the body of work, the people who criticized me didn't do nearly as much as I did. So I think that's but that's part of it too. In the last episode, uh, I reported to you. Really, I didn't put it in these words, but I truly don't care what other people think, and that's been true for a long time. But and I've changed a little bit. I mean, I wear a little bit more armor around the assholes, and and I hold on to my intolerance of what they are, and embrace the bliss, you know, of the people you love and the things that you love. I'm in a state of bliss right now. So these are the questions, and so I'll do a little reading now. This is basically to assess the reading, and right now we're still in this section that I described as notes. So okay. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, thankfully. It says, I was talking about Bernie Sahlins thinking I was a martyr, that I made myself into a martyr because I wasn't trying to make it as something, you know. Well, and it when I was during the period where I was watching and thinking about the movie Oppenheimer. So I say, Oppenheimer and I weren't passive. We had nothing to gain from the competition. That was another thing that Bernie would say. He would say, "You're too competitive." And I think really what he was saying is that I was too resistant to the general way that people were doing things. I mean, I was self-directed completely. I wasn't I wasn't going to just go along with what was happening around me to be cooperative or nice. So he interpreted that as competition. It wasn't competition at all. Quite honestly, in those days, which we're talking about quite a while ago, when I was young, not a baby, but young, like in my late 20s and early 30s, that's what we're talking about. I actually felt beyond competition, and I think rightly, uh, as arrogant as this might sound, I didn't think there was any competition around me. I mean, I didn't think any of those Second City improvisers were as smart or as talented as I am, quite honestly. Oh, speaking of talent, I'm playing in the background. You can see a little bit of it with the sound off. Uh, Paul and I discovered Randy Rainbow last night. Have you ever? I had seen one or two of his videos or whatever, but they really didn't register. But we were just sitting like doing nothing, which is a good thing to do. And and we're on YouTube, so sometimes you end a video and you don't click skip for one reason or another, and another video comes on, and his video started coming up, and they came up one after another, and they're really terrific. This guy is sensationally talented. He he and then a video came up where he was being interviewed by Jimmy Kimmel, and a blurb on the cover of a book uh, that he wrote said that Stephen Sondheim said that he was the best lyricist uh, that he ever heard or of his generation or something. And these lyrics are extraordinary. And from an existential point of view, I think that Randy Rainbow is kind of a great example of what I'm talking about. This is not a guy I feel more talented than. I mean, he said that his mother set out to raise the gayest boy on Long Island. So this guy's unapologetically gay, and he likes musical theater, and he's great at it. He has uh, he has one video where he sings "Light a Rose" from The Music Man, and that counterpoint "Dream of Me." Marion sings in counterpoint to the barbershop quartet. He's sensational. He's got a sensational voice. He's a great writer. He's tremendously funny. He doesn't debate whether he's going to put a chyron on or not. He makes these videos uh, in his home, and he's very technically adept. He has great effects, and he's really an artist. And I think that the whole idea of he to me, even though he's successful and he's known. He was on Jimmy Kimmel and everything. He's known, but he kind of to me is an antidote to career, because I think this guy has a talent that in a different culture and a different world, he would have a career like somebody like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I mean, he's he's a great performer. He's a great writer. He's smart as hell, and he has his songs. They're a niche. He does them. I don't know. He's got his YouTube channel, and he does it. I'm not saying this because it's my aspiration for this channel, so don't read that into it. Uh, I'm just very impressed by what this guy has done. He does that YouTube channel because he was never going to get a shot in the mainstream entertainment world. He just wasn't. And not only was he not going to get a shot, but I think he wants to do everything his own way. He's, you know, he does parodies primarily of Broadway show tunes, and I can see why Sondheim really liked him, because he's better than all these Broadway shows that all sound alike, and they're just they're compromised into mush. I don't know. I haven't seen one personally in a while, so I might be unfair, but I used to really like Broadway shows and musicals and dramas, obviously too. But I lost interest because they just they weren't. There was something missing. There was something missing. I mean, I'm sure. I'm thinking about it, and it's like there are really talented people working in that area too. I don't want to. I'm painting with too broad a brush there, but I think the commercial part for sure. The commercial side of it. But I think of Miranda because he did. I'm realizing these references are old. Okay, I mean, we're several. What are we? 8 years, 9 years past the premiere of Hamilton on Broadway. But this guy. But I guess it's the same thing would be true for Randy Rainbow, because he never got that shot. But he was smart enough, forget it, not to take that shot. Anyway, let me get a little bit more of this, a little bit more of these notes out. Martyrs are instinctive and unconscious dissenters. We don't set out to alienate anybody. We get crucified because our actions are heard by the crowd as if we are calling them out. We are a natural challenge to the lousiness of the way things are. We were born that way. It doesn't even occur to us to go in the gutters. Well, I think that's a good paragraph. I think it's the first paragraph of writing that I found in these notes. So then the question is, what do these notes apply to? They apply to me, my masterpiece, here. They apply to future essays and preachments. And they also, because I'm talking about this whole thing with Bernie, and actually I did, without even thinking of these notes, I did revisit that and wrote that in the memoir, which is like approaching novel, that improv story manuscript that I wrote. So these the qualities in the writing can be in all these three different pieces of what not who I am. I can't do anything about that. I can just understand it. But what I do with it. This is the This is the question, and maybe it's the question of all writing. I mean, why do you read a novel? You read a novel, I think, to learn something about how to live life. Why do you listen to a sermon? Why do you read Emerson or Twain's essays? To learn about life. Why do you write them? To learn about life. Why do you read them and talk about them and then try to see what's in you to see what you're going to write to learn about life? Okay, I want to do a little. I want to go a little bit over again because, and I'm pretty sure, I don't see this as like a commercial piece. This isn't Rock'em Sock'em, but I think it's I think it's important. So I want to keep going a little bit more. And this is why I was erased from the book of places. I That's a great line. I was erased from the book of places. And that is what happened to me. I think it's what happened to Randy Rainbow too. Said, I did it my own way, with joy, not sanctimony. And they thought I was attacking their way with moralistic pomposity. I think I think I was being moralistic. I don't think I was being pompous. I wasn't, I say. Well, I half wasn't. It wasn't about them. I didn't think of them much until they showed up with pitchforks and torches. Now that I understand their dark hearts, I can speak to that darkness from the outside, the only perspective from which to actually see it. If you are in contest with them, you can get close, but not have detachment and objectivity. And I think that's what I was really buttoning down. I was really starting to understand how detached I was from them. And sort of this paradox that I was detached, but I was also intolerant and pissed off about them. I was also angry at them. And those things are not mutually exclusive. It's I wrote about a lot about that yes and, but life isn't yes and neither is art. It's yes and no. Okay, anyway. Now I say it's so interesting that Oppenheimer kept working after his exile. In the movie and in history, I guess Oppenheimer was really made persona non grata, and he was removed from the halls of power because he basically, ironically, the the leader of the making of the atom bomb uh, had didn't think it ever should be used, and that went against what the establishment wanted to happen. And this guy Lewis, whatever his name was, I'm spacing on his last name, but his nemesis, basically in the style of the 1950s, kind of kind of slimed him like in a Red Scare manner. So he was really driven out from the halls of power, and I was relating to it because I was driven out. I was driven out from the improvisational community because I was improvising and they're doing some showbiz crap. I really didn't have a problem with the fact that they were doing showbiz crap, just that they really had no commitment to improvisation at all. They couldn't have those two things in their mind. They couldn't say, "Oh, he's not trying to get on a sitcom, so let him do this artistic thing, and he can be here working independently with it." They're not capable of that. Okay, they're not capable of that because they're basically narcissistic and they take that as an insult. So there's nothing you can do. That's what happened to Oppenheimer. They drove him out of the halls of, you know, uh, power, the powerful physicists. And now I mention, and it's an interesting thing. We had just we just moved to Nashville, but actually this started in Chicago. This started before Nashville. I write here. It's so interesting that Oppenheimer kept working after his exile. He didn't need them. He learned that. Well, that's what I learned. I just didn't need them. Uh, I wrote on my blog, and uh, people read me, and I'm making these videos, and I just didn't need them. Uh, and then of uh, the end of the movie was really interesting, and I think it's something that elevated the movie um, beyond just being a biopic and into some sort of existential questions. He received, when Johnson was president, so 10 years after his exile, um, he accepted the Fermi Award, which I guess is a national honor for those accomplished in the field of physics. And Nolan, the director or writer, shows that that award really wasn't for Oppenheimer. It was for them. They wanted to recognize his excellence and values, even if they never lived up to them. And that's happened to me a couple times. You return to something that you did. Oh, you were right. Oh, that was tremendous. We thought that was great. But in the meantime, they try to ice you out and uh, basically deny you work. Basically, what they want to do is they want to tell you to shut up. So this is this is what I was working through. But he had Oppenheimer Beach. I don't know, it was in the Caribbean somewhere, and he went there, and he kept his life work didn't stop when they stopped um, recognizing him, and I had the same experience. It was a false and self-aggranding gesture to give Oppenheimer the award. And the movie, at least for me, leaves open the question, should he have even returned to accept it? And it also opens the question, as I was saying in the last video, is success is what I say it is. Your success is what you say it is. So if that's true, then why go back? Why go back at all? I'm pretty clear on that. As a matter of fact, the first video in this series, the introduction, was about that. I think that's when that finally really sunk in with me. I didn't want to submit to the publishers. I'm just not interested. And the reason why I'm not interested in is that I don't, it's a certification process. I've been certified enough and denied it anyway. You know, uh, so So what is it? What is it that you do? And I think Randy Rainbow, at the moment, is a pretty good example of what you do. I mean, he doesn't have the recognition or the money of doing something like Hamilton, but he's doing something just as good. And recognition of money is not the issue anyway. It says Oppenheimer had great friends. So do I. Wife. So do I. All great. Brother. So do I. He had his work. So do I. Leading elite people to creative discoveries. Me too. And he had a romantic sense of home. So do I. He chose places, Los Alamos and St. John's, where he could be in solitude, and a place like his Princeton Institute, where he could collaborate with others of his caliber. That collaboration is something I wouldn't mind, to tell you the truth. But he couldn't be with them. And again, back to Kamala Harris, who said, talking about Trump, after Trump said some racist things about her, and just a typical ugly. And she said, the American people deserve better than that. Deserve better than that. And then I say here, there's a big reason I'm so happy at the moment. Those people seem millions of miles and hundreds of years away. And they do. They're not in my life at all. I don't work with them. I don't talk with them. I don't deal with them. Every time I have to run across one of them, because, when you leave the house, you're going to find a lot of them. But, it's nobody that there's a deep connection. The only place where they still exist are in my thoughts, in my memory. Something happens, I see something on TV, something happens in life, and it brings back the memories of some of these people. And I used to think, why can't I make these memories stop? They're never going to stop. And I'm glad they're never going to stop, because they're reminders of what I refuse to be. I was raised Catholic, and the idea of original sin and then having a free will, I kind of look at things that way. People can either choose to be human and to be, they're not going to be, no one's going to be perfect or anything else, but to be as excellent as you can be as a human being. You can either make that choice, or you can choose the sin, the apple. You can tell yourself that's all there is, and then do all sorts of awful things because you say, well, I needed the money, or I had to do this, or you could have all sorts of justifications, all sorts of excuses. And that's kind of the way that I look at it. I mean, so I do see it. I do see it as a moral question. I say I have no animus towards them. I see this aspect of human nature. They play their role in the consciousness of man, and what they misname as martyrs play another. And I really believe in that, the consciousness of man. creative people are the future. We're the things, Martin Luther King, the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. It does get better. It does. Mankind's consciousness raises. One of the things that's happening in this country right now is there's a big part of the population where their consciousness is much higher than it was like in the 1970s or something. There's a different there's a different acceptance. People, even in very prosaic things, gender discrimination, racial discrimination, all this stuff about keeping people down. There's a lot of people that are just like, they're awake, woke. They're awake to how wrong that is to say, I don't think a black man should be president. I don't think a woman should be president. This nonsense that has nothing to do with reality, a lie that they know is a lie. Deep down in their heart, they know they're wrong. So, but they play their role. They play their role. It's like they're there for a reason. They're there for a reason because every time I have a pissed off memory about them, that's my free will saying, stay on the straight and narrow. That's what it is. This is who you are. This is what you believe. You're appalled at what they're doing. Don't do it yourself. Don't descend into it yourself. That can be tough because, because that's what they want. They want to goad you into hitting them or something. It's that'll be talked about in other videos. It's very much a dance of what to do, but in terms of that. But right now we'll talk about that they are great teachers of what not to be. And they help us be who we are. I say I feel blessed by what? I put by cosmological forces. You could call it God. That's another thing. I mean, there's a creative intelligence that's out there. There's something. I'm in relation to something else, which is like informing how I feel and thoughts that I have and what my experience is. I have no question about that. You could, cosmological forces. It's interesting. We're talking about physicists. So, you can call it God. You could call it E equals MC squared. I don't know. You could call it whatever. There's something that animates life. And Oppenheimer's mentor was Einstein. And as brilliant as those two guys were, it took them lifetimes to understand the nature of human relations in this sphere. I really like that line too. And if there's anything that talks about what the essential nature of art and philosophy and the humanities, it's that. Because even for the most brilliant among us, it doesn't matter if you're brilliant, it doesn't matter if you're average. It might be easier if you have Down syndrome or something, if you have a more simple vocabulary and a more simple frame of reference to work in. But to be a human being is hard for anybody. Einstein spent his life thinking about that. That's in his essays. Oppenheimer struggled with it even more because he had real problems, actually, which we'll probably talk about a little bit more later. So, it's hard. So I'm great at not knowing what I'm doing, because that is the humility and the openness that you have to have in order to do the right thing. If you have all the answers, you're on the road to perdition. And that's another reason too, and this will come up again. It's a reason that I'm spared regret, because regret, I don't really have regret, because I do the best I can, and that's all you can do. So there's nothing to regret. Oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that. And that even includes some things that I feel shame for. There aren't too many of them actually, but there's a couple things that I'm actually thinking of one in particular. I actually only one comes to mind, and that'll come up later. But I don't regret it, because even then I did the best that I could. And then I say my learning curve on this is right on schedule. Once you're on this learning curve, you're always on schedule. So, am I going to write the Emersonian? Well, it's not Emersonian, but am I going to write the preaching pieces? Am I going to, keep doing this video as like, here I am, here's the masterpiece in progress. This is my being. Am I going to write novels? The real question to live is, what is the right thing? And you don't answer that question by coming up with an answer. You answer it by living the question. And then I have a reference. This is the last line here. And it's a reference to something in the movie Oppenheimer at the Blackboard analogy. I do feel that's what I'm up to. Oppenheimer would get in front of, he would get in front of his charges at Los Alamos, or his students or whatever, and he'd work it out on the blackboard. He'd be figuring out the formula in front of everybody else. And that's basically what we're doing all the time. To be at the blackboard, that's what it is. This video has run 53 minutes. And I don't regret that. And I think the reason why is that this video was kind of a class. So it's not a class where you're going to be tested on the content, but if you've been listening and responding and thinking, I think it's a positive thing. So this has been episode 6. Class is dismissed for today. All right, take care.